I hate that we have a lot of people that are in our vicinity that still watch Fox News and think they're populist because they can challenge the Democratic Party, but they're doing this garbage reporting, and we have to call this out. This is horrible. And this one, they're still doubling down on this story. If you guys didn't hear, so the Bibas family was killed, and it was part of this exchange of the first phase of the ceasefire. And they're trying, and we know what we know about Hamas is that they're trying to get through this first stage, whatever it takes, and they're willing to bite their tongue and to tough it out and just get to the second phase. Netanyahu is dead set on not getting to the second phase, so he set this whole thing up. He's putting up this picture. It's showing that the Bibas family, doubling down on this is a lie. They were not killed by Hamas. They were killed by the Hannibal Directive. What is the Hannibal Directive? That is where Israel can fire on its own people for the greater good. The greater good. We cover that on the show all the time. Always watch out for the greater good case, because that's no. The humanity and morality and principle and life is the greater good. So stop trying to tell us that we have to do these horrible things for something bigger. So no, this is all a setup. It's not true. This is the story. Netanyahu shows the picture of the Bibas family at combat officers' graduation. Remember what we're fighting for. And here's the translation. He displayed the images of the two sons, and that's obviously to pull at the heartstrings. I want to show you something. I want to show you this picture. This picture says it all. I ask you, you engrave it on the board of your hearts so that you will always remember what we are fighting for and against whom we are fighting. And then he says, he told the graduates, according to Fox News, this was the translation: we are fighting to secure our existence against man monsters who have risen to annihilate us. Again, there is your Islamophobia. There is your creating a monster. They're not people. Dehumanization. 100% correct on that one, Jay. And I wanted, for those of you who don't understand the lie here, the big lie is that the Bibas family was not actually killed by Hamas. How do we know for a fact, Jay? Because Bibas' father told us this himself. Watch this. They're purposely hiding this story. Now, is it possible? Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say, okay, maybe the father is a self-hating Jew. That whole thing. Let's find any excuse that he hates Netanyahu independently of this and is using this as okay. I'm trying to figure out what is the justification here. Well, I found this morning, Jay. I want people to see this. This is an actual video when the mother and the kids were still alive. This is a chilling video. I don't know if you've seen this yet, Jay, because I didn't see it on too many people on X this morning, and I'm just like, this gave me chills to see. This is the actual footage of the Bibas family as Hamas is trying to protect them from Israel fire, which they are successful with here, but it turns out that they were killed a week after this was shot. This is the actual footage of them protecting the now deceased Bibas family.
الإنسانية عنا مش عندهم. ما حدا حيصيبها عشان تعرف إن الإنسانية عنا. أيوة استروها وخلوها لما تاخدوها حية. اعرفوا خليها تعرف. معها أطفال نعم. يا ريتني بحكي عبر. إيه؟ أولاد قاعدين عشان يطلعوها من المستوطنة. لم تعد هناك حصانة لا لغرف محصنة ولا لأي شيء من هذا القبيل. صغار هذول مستوطنين صغار، احفظهم وخليهم هان بدون أذى لا تؤذوهم. تمام 100% نتعامل بحكمة هنا الشباب مع مثل هؤلاء. هذا طفل ولد يعني عمره تقريبا 10 سنوات. وطلعنا سليمين ان شاء الله. دير بالكم عليه يا شباب، اوعك تسيبوه، اتعاملوا معاه باخلاقكم.
And according to this, Adam has been great on Twitter. So Adam says this video shows that this is on October 7th. Yeah. Protecting the family and others from the Israeli forces Hannibal directive, using their own bodies as human shields. Israel killed the Bibas family a few weeks later. It's not a coincidence. This is so sad. Yeah.
What people need to do is zoom out and recognize that this is all the greater Israel project. Israel has never wanted Palestine to have its own land. They've always wanted all the land in Israel. They want land around Israel. It includes parts of Egypt. It includes all of Jordan. It includes all of Lebanon. It includes parts of Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Iran, all these different countries. And they're starting out with Palestine. But what we're seeing is the start of, if we don't stop them, what they're doing to Palestine, they're going to continue doing to all around Israel too, to continue to take that territory. And they engaged in the Hannibal directive the day of those October 7th attacks. And the very, like all those people who died that day, the majority of them were killed by the Israeli military. So this doesn't shock me that they're going after the hostages to be able to say, look, Hamas killed the hostages because there are no more, hostages left alive. Look how brutal they are. So when we go in and we, blow up what's left over there and kill even more women and children over there, in your mind, you're going to think it's justified because Hamas is the ones who are going around kidnapping and killing, like innocent people. So this is a pattern of what they do to paint themselves as the victim, to dehumanize the other side, and to make people think their actions are justified and they're defending themselves when it's really a colonialist, expansionist project to take over not just Palestine, but all these different parts of the Middle East.
And you just sent me this link from Red Collective. We're going to take a look at this. This is actual footage from the Hannibal directive carried out on October 7th by Israel. It was in their charter. They changed the charter just before that so they can do this legally, militarily speaking. And here it is. If you guys haven't seen it, here you go.
קיבלתי 100. קיבלתי פיטר, את היכולות המתפצלים, אחד לוקח משבתאי ואחד לכרם שלום. שפתח 1200 בנמל ותורו אחריו גם 1200 בנמל. אני עושה את זה לפרוץ את החמ"ל, אנחנו מבצעים ירי תפלח באזור המוצב כדי לעשות רצון. כן. יאללה. מה תפעת את זה? 10 דקות זה מצטער. אני יוצא החוץ. קיבלתי קוצר אחד, לזיקים קם דיווח בין 0 ל-1. עשרות אנשים שמנסים להיכנס מול נחלות. אתם מנסים חזרה לרצועה על ציר. בסדר, חצו הרבה מזרחה, ביצעתי עליהם פילה.
And, all these, like the day of, there's neighborhoods in Israel called the kibbutz, and that's where, Israelis live. And that day on October 7th, Hamas went into the kibbutz to try to take hostages, and Israel fired into the kibbutz. And, some of that was the footage you saw just now, where they were intentionally taking out both Hamas and Israelis to prevent Hamas from taking them. And then the narrative the very next day was Hamas killed all these people, even though it was the Israeli army firing on them. So this is who the Israeli government is. I don't think everyone in Israel is fully aware of what their government is doing, the same way how most people in America are not fully aware of what our government is doing. But there is actually, I think, a difference between America and Israel in the sense that if you were to ask the average American, I would say probably at least 80 to 90% of Americans do not believe that Americans are inherently better than all the other people across the world that we get into fights with. There's a large chunk of people like in Israel, I don't know the exact percentage, who truly believe that Palestinians are not human, the exact same thing that they accuse Hamas of thinking about them. There's a very large chunk of Israelis who do genuinely believe that, not just about Palestinians, but also about like Arab people in general. And I don't know if you saw the story the other day in Miami, Matt. There was 3
Yeah.
Israelis, and the Israeli fired on 2 people who he says he thought were Palestinians, and then they wound up being 2 Israelis. But then the 2 Israelis went and said that they were the victims of an anti-Semitic attack when it was an Israeli who fired on them. But he didn't fire on them because he was getting attacked. He fired on them because he just thought they were Palestinians, and so they had to die. So there is another level of extremism and expansionism in the mindset of a lot of Israeli people, which is extremely dangerous. And it wasn't always this way, but in the past few decades, there's been a very strong shift, more towards the right. And I think, it probably started with the passing of Rabin, back in the 1990s, who was negotiating that deal with Clinton. Netanyahu was actually likely involved in that because the killer of the prime minister in Israel who tried to negotiate a peace deal with the Palestinians had just come from a Netanyahu speech right before he went to go kill the prime minister of Israel. So there is a level of propaganda over there that doesn't exist in America right now. And I think Americans need to understand that there's an issue there. There's an underlying issue that needs to be dealt with. Then again, I'm half Ashkenazi myself. This has nothing to do with the race of people. This has nothing to do with religion. This has to do with political ideology. And Zionism is, in my opinion, a terrorist ideology. That's how I describe it. It's an extremist terrorist ideology, in my opinion. And it is the driving cause of anti-Semitism in the world today.
Yeah. And we talk about, those who truly believe that anti-Semitism is the biggest problem in the planet. If you, at some point, I think we had a little freeze there. We're good? I think we're good.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it cross your mind at some point that if you want to stop the big problem of anti-Semitism, you might want to look at the optics of the thing that you believe the entire world hates?
Mm-hmm.
Might want to look at what you're doing. You might want to be concerned about how you operate. You might want to get angry about something like the Hannibal Directive. That might actually interest you in your quest to rid the world of anti-Semitism. That might actually do you some good. So it's hard to even take that claim seriously. The Tulsi Gabbards and the people out there that are saying this is the number one problem. Really? You believe that? So if we were in a team huddle, how can we solve this horrible problem? The number one problem, as you say, Tulsi, as a lot of people think, and let's take you for your word. Number one problem for the American people, anti-Semitism. Okay.
Where does it come from?
Let's look at the thing that is, as you say, is causing hate. Let's look at it. What can you do better? What can we do? So there's so many problems with that sentiment, and it makes us believe some of these people aren't being honest about it, and they're either captured or they're But there's a lot of people that with no power. Our neighbors, our friends, people right here in Hollywood, man. There are just so many people. They have no power. No one's writing them a check. They just fully believe this thing, and I don't think they've stopped and thought about it really carefully enough and said, "Wait, what? Wait, what did Israel say?"
They don't know the history. A lot of people really don't know the history. And, just look at the founding of Israel. Israel was started with the Balfour Declaration, and that was written by the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds also had a hand in the creation of our central bank. So, there's a lot of issues, man, that people are just trying to call attention to. And, if you just dismiss everything as anti-Semitism and you don't look into the reasons behind it, it's only going to cause it to get worse. So I really hope, that folks can look at the history there.
Let's look at this. I'm going to bookend the segment with this is yet another breaking of the ceasefire. This is the actual, and we talk about the first stage of the ceasefire. Hamas, Palestine, these people want to get to the next stage. It seems that Netanyahu does not, because he keeps breaking it at every turn. This is breaking the ceasefire again. Palestinian families who had been anxiously awaiting the release of their imprisoned loved ones all day are returning home exhausted and heartbroken after Israel decided against the release of the captives in yet another violation of the ceasefire. And it seems like every time they violate this, whether it's just bombing a random town in Lebanon, or going into Gaza again, whatever they're doing, or going through the West Bank and seizing some more property and putting them up.
And there's no reports on that in the mainstream media. If you're not in the weeds like you and me, Matt, the average person knows nothing about this. But if Hamas strikes back, that you will hear about.
Yeah. And so people, you're right, they don't know this is happening. But if they were to pay attention, they would say, well, what are they going to do about it? Aren't they going to get angry? Because Israel would get, if somebody broke a truce with Israel, they would get furious. So why are they going home with one could say with your tail between your legs? And even by this snapshot, it's tragic to see this type of walking home. And there's no recourse. Why is that? If Israel truly broke a deal, wouldn't there be anger and some sort of pushback? No, there's not. That's not how it works. The reason there is no pushback is that Israel holds all the cards, and you have to bite your tongue. You have to walk home, as it says in the tweet, exhausted, heartbroken, and you have to keep your chin high as much as you can, because they want so bad to get to that next phase that they have to just keep their mouth shut right now. But the reality is, when you see Netanyahu parading around on mainstream media, holding those pictures, saying, "You remember the monsters, remember them," he has no intention of getting to that second phase. And that is the tragedy of this entire story.
Yep. It's sad, man. And what I don't think people realize is Israel cannot defeat Iran, alone. Iran is very much aware of the greater Israel project, and it could, and Iran doesn't actually need nuclear weapons to defeat Israel. So that's why, I'm very worried about, us getting into a hot war with Iran, because they have hypersonic missiles that can have similar devastation to something like a nuclear weapon without the nuclear fallout. So and that's what they demonstrated, like in that exchange they had with Iran a few months ago. And I don't think people realize it, but I think Israel was caught off guard, by how accurate Iran's missiles were, the fact that they couldn't stop it. And there were a few big shakeups, like when that happened. So, we're in a tough spot right now because Israel isn't slowing down, and because they know they have the most pro-Israel president, they could ask for in the White House right now. So that could be part of the reason why we're seeing this Ukraine war come to an end, because they want to pivot, over to the Middle East. And of course, they want to take them by surprise. You don't want to let your enemy know, that you're coming for them. So, maybe that's why Trump keeps saying there aren't going to be boots on the ground right now. But in the long run, I'm not so sure if we'll be able to avoid it, if Israel keeps doing what they're doing. So we'll see.
We'll see. We'll keep an eye on this one, you guys, for sure.